Yeah, I'm here today with sports expert Stuart Ballantyne to lift the lid on what the government's done in terms of blocking transshipping, port development, dredging by stealth in Queensland, and therefore blocking development. What's happened, there's been a transshipping report that's floating around in government, and as I asked and brought up in estimates today, and the government's going to be evasive about this, but there is no question in our mind that the government plans to block any further transshipping in Queensland, and that's also in areas of the Gulf where nothing to do with the Great Barrier Reef. So if you want to build a marina, have commercial boats, no material difference to any transshipping vessels of any size. You just can't do that. You can do it with recreational, but you can't do it if you're using it for export goods or anything that relates to industry. So the only conclusion that we can draw, if there's no material difference, there's no evidence of any environmental damage from any of these activities, then the only conclusion we can draw is that this government is anti-jobs and anti-development.
So there's a report, did you say, that's floating around?
So there's a report that's been circulating. They've been taking advice from industry from about September last year on transshipping. But the feedback we're getting now, and we're under no illusions that the government will fall heavy-handed and will make moves, and which is why we're questioning today in estimates, and they will not commit to assuring us that there'll be no blocking of transshipping. And we know that this is going to happen, like it has in trending with everything with this government. Anything to do with environment, they want to rave around their credentials regardless of the rationale or the impact it has, and regardless of the lack of impact, the absence of any impact, material impact on the environment. There's no data, but they just want to make a political statement, and it'll be the cost of industry and jobs in this Queensland. They're strangling us to death, particularly in these regional areas where there's a lot of opportunity for this. There's no material impact on the environment discernible that anyone should have any concerns about, but they're just blocking this as a political statement. And again, we'll be paying the cost in the future, and it's important that we call the government out now for blocking jobs and development in this state.
So Robbie, just to be very clear, you're saying that the government is currently introducing steps to stop, you believe, all transshipping in Queensland. So that would be no cargo ships, no anything taking goods from Queensland elsewhere?
So there's the regular port activity, places like Townsville, Cairns, Brisbane are obviously the biggest, and they're established. So there's been restrictions on dredging to minimise activity, particularly in places like Cairns. So dredging's been stopped. Any further dredging will not occur anywhere in Queensland. But if you want mini ports with the aspect of transshipping, which is a lot more discreet form of maritime, what would you say, sea transport. It's a much more discreet way of approaching a problem, of exporting our goods, and lot lower impact to do that. But so we've tried to be innovative in Queensland to provide alternate means of less impact on the environment, and they want to block that as well. So every time we try and be innovative and work within the constraints of the government, they're going to keep blocking. So the end of the story is the government wants to block any further development anywhere outside of Brisbane, Townsville, Cairns in terms of port development in Queensland, and that's bad news for everyone.
And you think perhaps it's best to run a visual just to get you to come up to the microphone for a second. In your media release, you were talking about the significant sum that this could cost the Queensland economy.
Oh, well...
how much would it cost the Queensland economy?
Well, Karumba, for instance, Karumba and Bingbong were the two ports exporting lead zinc. At the moment, they've exported $10 billion worth each, and the government gets about $500 million of royalties out of that. It's significant.
So you're saying if we don't follow through with this, we're foregoing... Go that much? We'd be foregoing billions?
You'd be foregoing billions, but you'll also be foregoing jobs, regional development, training for the traditional owners. In Bingbong, for instance, in the Northern Territory, 26 years ago, we set up a mini port and a little ship. The local Aboriginal group, so the Mawa group, actually has joint venture ownership of the ship, and it's created a lot of jobs, a lot of training, and it's been a great example. There's no environmental hassles, there's been no damage to the environment. And to hear this policy coming through like this, we're stopping dredging, we're stopping transshipping, is just crazy.
Could these major companies still not use Cairns and Townsville?
The product is economically trapped. You can't put, for instance, the phosphate south of Birdtown. You can't stick that on a truck, take it to Mount Isa, stick it on a train, take it to Townsville, and stick it on a ship at a cost less than it can sell is economically trapped. And so what we're doing is we're taking the port to the product, just a tiny little port, small environmental footprint. It's a transfer system. It works very well all around the world. We've perfected a little bit because we make it totally dust-proof and spill-proof and everything else, and we've won 5 environmental awards. We're a Queensland company, so we're very proud of it. We've sold our designs to 47 countries, and locally the government's trying to ban dredging and transshipping. It defies logic.
And just yourself, can you just introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dr. Stuart Ballantyne from the Sea Transport Corporation Group. We're ship designers. I started the company 42 years ago here in Queensland, so and I say we've exported to 47 countries designs, so we've got a bit of cred there.
And Robbie, just get your step up, that's right. Do you mind listing perhaps some of the towns, regional areas that you would like to see extra ports?
Yeah, so we need to be clear that this is stifling any development we've got in the north. There's economically stranded product up there that will remain there forever unless we can get it out by sea. And the government's now telling us we intend to stop you from ever doing that. So it may seem incredible to some people in Brisbane that, oh, you've got these existing ports, why can't you use them? You can't. These things will be stranded, and the tragedy of that is that's the only hope that some of these Indigenous communities up there have got of owning a business, owning a part of a business and becoming part of some economic prosperity that the rest of the state's enjoyed. We'll be denied that because presumably this is being done in the name of the reef, but in the Gulf of Carpentaria there is no reef. So we ask the question, why would we be included in this, and why is this needed at all, even on the East Coast? And you know, for us, there are some very significant resources, and for people here in Brisbane, understand there is significant resources up there that could create terrific wealth for the country and the state, and we'd all benefit from. But we just want the chance to have the most discreet form of transport node. But in the name of politics, that will all be destroyed by this government if we put these bans on transhipping, and they need to be called out on it. And I'm sure they'll tell you that it won't have any impact, but I can assure you it will, because it's hard enough to do anything already, and they want to tighten these restrictions more, and so you can kiss goodbye to all this potential and prosperity that we could enjoy in Queensland.